I would just record to the cloud.
That's what I had. Okay. I usually don't do the
If you want to separate tracks, I believe you can't, like, just for your own reference. If you're doing something where you need separate tracks for each person, you cannot do that on the cloud. You need to record to your computer.
Okay. Before we start, Ginny is our secretary, and I have been thinking about this, Ginny, and I think for your notes, and you guys can tell me, these are recorded, so we can always go back and look at these, and if there's any kind of dispute. But I feel like, Ginny, it might allow you to participate more and give you less sort of busy work afterwards if you can take attendance, who's here, who's not here. You've got the agenda in front of you, and just sort of take notes on what's being said, but not verbatim, not Susan said this, Stacy said this, Solomon said this, and maybe just a couple bullet points for each one. Really, I think we should just have if we can make it even a 1 page, the notes, where it's bullet points.
Most minutes are usually a list of what was decided, changed, adopted, etc., and don't really need an extensive narrative.
And I think if we just kind of hit that, Ginny, with the bullet points and action steps, I think that's probably the most important thing for us. Like, what did we say we're going to do? Oh, Ruth said she's going to do this by next month. Stacy said she's going to do this by next month. So then we have sort of an accountability. Oh, I forgot I said I was going to do that. So that might make your life easier, Ginny, I hope.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so just maybe a little less formal, I think, because, when we didn't have Zoom meetings and these were all in person and no one was recording everything, verbatim or more extensive notes might be a little bit more useful. But I think that might make it a little bit better for everybody. So that's just to start. I wanted to say that at the beginning so that you don't take extensive notes for the entire meeting and then I tell you that at the end. I think we should do the welcome and the introductions because we've got a couple new people here, and if Chris joins us, I actually don't know Chris at all. So I think we'll just start with maybe Solomon. I'm Stacy Overton Johnson. I'm the new chair. I was the vice chair for several years. I'm a freelance TV producer. I do print as well, but mostly television in this country. I've done print. I did print overseas in the Middle East for 4 years full time. And since 2005, I have been a freelancer, except for the 4 years in the Middle East where I was a full-time food journalist. And I do television now. I also, you should know this, I also teach full-time now at a vocational school from 8 to 3. So I am pretty much unavailable from 8 to 3, but I still freelance in the evenings and on weekends, and I work a school year. So I don't work in the summers at the school, and I don't work like spring break and Christmas break and all those. So, and I'm in the off season right now. My TV show goes about 6 or 7 months a year, and I get 5 or 6 months off a year from that. So that is and I'm always at the conference. I've been in person at the conference every year. I've been in this country as an SPJ member. I've gone to every conference in person except for the COVID. So I will, even though it's in Las Vegas and I do not like that city, I am committing again that I will be there. So, all right. And Solomon, I'll leave it to you now.
Oh, I don't have any of that extensive history. So I am the neophyte in the group here, but I'm the co-chair. I was the project coordinator for the last year.
Program coordinator.
Program coordinator. I keep saying project. I don't know why. Program coordinator, which is the position that we now have Stephanie Barnaba. Or did I pronounce your name, Barnaba?
Bernaba, but
Barnaba.
I too. As long as you don't say Bernarba, I'm happy either.
Well, no extra letters. Like, okay, all right, because I will screw up people's names, not intentionally. Yeah, so I am probably the least experienced on the group. I am a student at Northridge. I am double majoring in political science and journalism. I do freelance for California Black Media, which is kind of like the AP for Black publications across the state of California. I'm also a photojournalist, and I compete with my photos, and that's about it.
Awesome. All right, Ruth.
I've been a full-time freelance writer, editor, proofreader, etc. since 1984, primarily in print. In recent years, a lot of online stuff. And in the last couple of weeks, one of my editing clients has had me do television interviews about the publication that they're doing paid media somehow. And I've done 3, and they're scheduling a few more for next month. So all of a sudden I get to do on-air broadcast stuff, which is very exciting.
That's really cool.
And I do, let's see, I write for the St. Louis Business Journal. I write for a website that covers commercial real estate in St. Louis. I'm their local reporter. And I do writing, editing, and proofreading for a whole boatload of other outlets, including a law firm, a PR firm that covers law firms or works with law firms, a gardening magazine, a magazine about Porsches, a company that does blog posts and websites for small businesses in the car audio field, and a whole bunch of other stuff I can't even always keep track of. So I have a lot of variety, a lot of fun, and I'm also responsible for the how-to guide for our group that we can talk about farther down on the agenda.
All right, thanks, Ruth. And Susan?
I'm Susan Vallet. I'm based in the LA area. We just got 4.5 inches of rain in the last 2 days, which may not seem a lot to other people, but for us, a half inch is a lot. I'm in the audio side of things. So I've been in public radio now for 25, 30 years almost. So I do public radio stories. I host and produce podcasts, predominantly for Quanta Magazine, which is a science publication. I am also an adjunct. I teach audio production, history of American cinema, and history of TV broadcasting. And that's pretty much it. When people ask me what I do, I tell them it depends on the day, and I tell them I wear 3 hats, and these are the hats. For this group, I'm an at-large member, pretty much run the Twitter feed, and help out with the Facebook stuff. That's pretty much it. And I have been to every conference in person except for started going back to Fort Lauderdale.
That was my first one too.
Yeah, so that was my first one where I was I met a few people sitting on the beach at night watching lightning off the coast, and a fox ran by. and one of the largest, I was out interviewing somebody in the middle of the night, and the largest I don't know what you would call it, pod of turtle eggs hatched for the giant turtles. So legally you're not allowed to touch them because they're an endangered species. But because I was the only other person there, they allowed me to pick them up and put them in buckets or they would die. Anyway, that was my first experience.
That's cool.
An SPJ conference. And I should be in Vegas. I will drive there. I also hate it. I'm usually there once a year anyway for a hockey tournament, but I play hockey and then I go hiking. So I am familiar with hiking trails on the outskirts of Vegas if you're interested in that.
Yes, I need to be out of the city once I get there. Ginny?
Hey, everybody. My name is Jenny McCabe. I'm a journalist and freelancer from Cincinnati. I've been involved in the Freelance board as the membership chair. And in the last term, I was also the secretary, so reelected as secretary this term. And I've been involved for a few years now, and also involved in SPJ for about a decade and a half, I think. So I'm also involved on the local level in Cincinnati. So good to see everybody here today.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. All right, so we want to talk to, why should I have a Hazel, even though Hazel's a guest today, but I'm going to have Hazel introduce herself because hopefully she'll be a guest every month.
And also Sergey.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're gonna get to the new people in just a minute.
Okay.
But before I should go through the old people and then we're gonna get to the new people.
The
Well, I'm
long
not-
time people.
No, I'm the old person and that's fine. I am officially retired from this board, but will hang around if you guys want me to, and we'll try to keep quiet, which is hard for me.
And any questions about anything that that I can't answer, that's who we ask, is Hazel. So Hazel's a really good resource. Sometimes I ask her something and the answer is like, oh, and like what I did about the database, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this. And I'm like, okay, back to square one. So she's a wealth of information. All right, so now let's get to our newest board members. Welcome. I'm so excited to see new faces on our board. Sergi, if you could pronounce your last name as well for us and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Sergio Dodero. I am so happy to know that I was the first SPJ Freelance Fellow, which is really cool. So I was there last at the convention, saw Hazel, saw Ruth and her elephants, and Stacy, of course. Was hoping to see some other folks as there. I heard some other folks wasn't able to get there, but hopefully I'll be able to meet them soon. Right now I'm in Louisiana, originally from New York. Long story, but I am the president of SPJ Pro down here, the first statewide chapter, which I'm happy to. We're struggling, but we're hanging in there. I used to live in Miami, so that's where most of my freelance work is, which is odd but interesting. I don't live in the state, and I cover a lot of fine art. I've never been to any of the exhibits, but I cover it all the time, which I think is hilarious. I had one source who asked me, said, "You never see my work. How do you write about it?" I'm like, I don't know. I get paid for it. I didn't say that. But apparently they love my work. So, it's good to go. And I also write for my media group, one of my clients, which they cover influential African Americans in Miami. And I also write for whoever pays for it. So, a couple of subjects I won't cover, but I try to do it all. And I'm happy to be here and happy to help in any way I can. And I will be bothering Hazel a lot as well. So hopefully I'm going to.
No, I'm hoping that your questions about the membership will go to her.
Yes.
Because
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here to help.
Yes. All right, great. And Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing and I'm here to help. I'll echo that sentiment. I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm going to try to keep my brain all squished in here. But I have been working for myself for this will be my 12th year, and I write local news. I write for large platforms. I write entertainment. I write human interest. I also write arts and living. So I totally get your comment about writing about an exhibit and not having visited. We're good at that. In addition to that, I am a photojournalist as well, but I also do photos privately. I do a lot of large nonprofit events and galas and many other parties and such. So I'm sort of branched off. I'm kind of spread a little bit thin. I do digital services for folks as well, to include logo design and web development and that branch. So I'm everywhere and nowhere all at once. And I helped to judge I was an associate judge last year for the Sigma Delta Chi Award. So
great.
And I'm happy to be here
and also a book reviewer.
Oh yeah, yep. Sorry. I forgot about that. I review books and I do a lot of movies and screeners and series that pop out into the world or don't.
Got it. And if I'm correct, Sergi and Stephanie, you both have young children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to come up with a time that works for all of us. I did ask everybody, and most of the responses I've got, like Susan can't meet on Tuesdays. I've got some specifics from people. But there's a little bit more flexibility, I think, with the other board members than there is with the three of us, just given the age of our kids. I could always meet at the times that we did it, but I was often driving and in a car. And if I'm going to run the meetings, I can't do that anymore. So I have to not do it. You know, I've had a meeting when I'm at a track meet. I think I was screaming for my kid. I didn't hit mute even on that meeting day. So anyway, so with that, well, anyway, welcome. Super glad to have you guys join us. And I hope it's everything you want it to be and more. With that, I do want to talk just a little bit about the communication preferences. I am really good with text. I just think that is something that we should, if someone needs something quickly, email is not the best way to do that with me. And I just think texting me, I'm just giving you all that information right now, not a call, because if I'm in class, I can't obviously take a call. I can answer a text. I will answer a text in class. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that text is the best for me.
I
Not
prefer email or phone. I don't do texting. I hate texting.
Perfect. Okay. So Ruth is phone or email. So if I ever have a question for you, Ruth, I'm going to call or email.
That'll be fine.
And then, okay. And then Solomon, I think, you're a phone call guy. Oh, you're on mute.
Solomon, you're on mute.
Oh, there we go. Phone calls are great, and text.
Phone and text.
I don't like email very much.
And Susan?
With it.
I'm usually email.
Your email. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. Sergi?
Text.
Text. Hazel? Hazel, phone, email, text, Telegram, everything. I'm going to show up at your house.
Hey, I got a bed for you.
Perfect.
And they are marvelous hosts, she and Bob.
Well, that is true for any of you. If you come to Washington and you need a place to stay, I'm not down in the thick of things, but since I'm retired, and I really am now, I probably get emails or texts more easily.
Okay.
And I don't answer phone calls from numbers that I don't know. So if you want to talk, I'm happy to talk to people, but do send me a text, 202-306-1778. I'll put it in the chat. And send me a text and let me know what time you want to talk.
Great. And Ginny?
Any of them work for me. I respond equally fast to all of them.
Perfect. Okay. And Stephanie?
Email and phone, and then text if you need to. Texts tend to get buried, and if there's important information in there, I like to have an email there, something I can kind of print out.
I see. Okay.
So
Yep.
I don't mind if it's a quick question or to check in about something, but if it's got like meat to it, I'd rather it be an email.
Okay. And Solomon Solomon called me, and he's on the West Coast, and I'm in New York too, by the way. I didn't mention where I was, and my TV show's in Texas, so that's weird. But Solomon called me, and he's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, so I was, I don't know, in the middle of dinner, who knows what I was doing at the time, but I often see the call, and then by the next day I've totally forgotten it. And I don't usually do that with text. So that's just, if you call me and leave a message, I'm not ignoring you. I've usually just forgotten that it happened. And that's a terrible habit I need to try to break, but I always respond to text. And the only thing I think we need to try to iron out before we really get into the meat of it is the availability for meetings. And I think, again, most of you responded and didn't have too much of a preference. I think even Ginny asked for later meetings too, which I think would work better for Stephanie, Sergi, and I. Does anybody, I'm just going to throw it out there, if we started a meeting at 6:30, is that too late for us on the East Coast? Does that work? Do you like that?
It's fine for me.
It's better. Okay. And Stephanie, is 6:30 good for you?
6:30 is fine. Yeah, I think.
Or 6? I don't know, just 6?
Yeah, I think 6:30 is probably like the later because I have, you know, I like to make sure everything is done or someone else is doing it. So 6:30 works well for me.
Perfect. Okay. And Sergi?
The later the better. 6:30, I might be catching the tail end of a school run because I'm also, it's insane, but the later the better. So 6:30 should be fine. I may be the beginnings of it in the car or something, but it should be
Okay. Okay.
should be okay.
And Solomon and Susan on the West Coast, if it's 3:30 for you, what are your thoughts on that? Okay. And then the days of the week, we cannot do Tuesdays. I'm just going to throw that out there. Is there any other day that someone says absolutely not, we can't do? I actually, we have fewer games on Mondays than any other day of the week. I don't know how everybody feels about Mondays, but Mondays are pretty good for me.
I can't do
won't
Monday.
know. I won't know till the end of the month. If I get reelected to my condo board, that's when we'll find out when our meetings will be, and they are
Okay.
in the evenings. I just don't know what day or what week. of the
Okay,
month.
so maybe we can wait. Maybe I'll just throw out a meeting for next month. A day, and then if we can work it in on a day, we'll figure that out next time. Did you say Mondays don't work for you, Solomon?
Yeah, I can,
Mondays.
for definitely because I have my editorial meetings are on Monday.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
So that leaves us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't think anybody wants Friday. So that leaves us Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah,
And just to reiterate that if it does happen to fall, if we do second Wednesday or third Wednesday or whatever it is, Thursdays, if I do have an event for my kids, I can't make the meeting. So we can either reschedule that or Solomon can run it for me instead. But I can't miss my kids' games. I'm also a cancer survivor, Sergi and Stephanie. I was diagnosed in cancer of 2020. And my whole perspective changed and I'm not missing anything in my kids ever again. So that is one of my things that I can't bend on.
Well,
all
it's
right,
once a month, so I mean, if you need to miss it, you can just let me know.
Yeah. And I can give you an agenda and I'll just rewatch it if it happens to be something like that. And weekends are terrible for me, so I don't think weekends an option.
I don't think any of us want to meet on the weekends.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. And I was hoping Hanan would be here. She didn't pop up in the room, but Hanan is the editor of our newsletter. I might keep this, we can just skip over this. I don't think it affects too many of you right now, but if she comes to the next month meeting, we'll introduce her and have her talk a little bit about the newsletter and what we might be able to send to her to make her life easier for that. For file management, I'm going to give Stephanie and Sergi access to our Google Drive. We have a shared Google Drive where we have a ton of stuff in there. We have past submissions or proposals for sessions from past conferences. We have Ruth's, the guide, the On Your Own guide is in there. There is so much information in there and you can go and see it and use it and look at it, and we can have shared documents that we add to. This is particularly important when we're pitching ideas for the annual convention, which is that's gonna happen before we know it. So that we're kind of sharing ideas and filling out making changes and fleshing out ideas on there together. So I will do that. I'm going to make myself a note to do that today. The convention is in Vegas, not September 28th through October 1st. I talked to Karen Sneath and the proposals for the sessions will be due in mid-March, which is a little bit later than the past years. They've been due like today, the middle of January. So we have a month and a half-ish or so to really get those ideas down. The freelancing 101 and the editor meet and greet, I think, are our only real two essentials. We had more than 2 sessions last year that we pitched for Sergey and Stephanie. We had more than 2 sessions that we pitched, those 2. One of them was crossing over mediums. Like I was with somebody else who gave a talk on going from broadcast to print or print to broadcast, because I've gone back and forth between those, and how do you do that? And that was one of them. It's called moving mediums, I guess. And we had a freelancing 201, which I actually did not attend, but Ruth gave. And that was just for more experienced freelancers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was for either people with more experience or who were ready to move from that beginning 101 level with some ideas on how to do that.
Right. Okay. Great. So I do think that the 101 and the meet and greet are the probably the most attended and the most talked about, and seem to be just massive value. The other ones are super valuable, but we don't want to give the same, we want to have different ideas every year. So I think those are the 2 to start with, and then let's see what we can come up with. I'm hoping that we can sort of reframe, rethink, reimagine, just kind of come up with new ways to do this. With the editor meet and greet last year, rather than just sitting and listening to editors talk, it was crazy, but we had 4 different sections of a room and 1 or 2 editors in each section. And every 9 minutes, Hazel would time it, and Hazel would be like, change up. And I'd say, okay, I get on a microphone and say, everybody move. Actually, just the editors moved and the people stayed the same. So it was crazy, but those are a little bit more fun than just sitting in a big open room watching 3 panelists give a talk. So I think we can do that with others as well. Karen and I also talked about, for the editor meet and greet, it does not ever feel like it's enough time. We could sit there for hours with these editors, and they were super happy. All the editors said it went too fast. So we have talked about doing a deep dive workshop, which, was a typo on the agenda. A deep dive workshop, which is a 90-minute session, which isn't that much longer, but I think that would be a good, that'd be a good alternative.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. The other thing is, she said, what about doing a deep dive or a workshop, not a deep dive, but the workshop on the Wednesday before. Those are much longer. Those can be 3 hours, but I don't think we'd have as great attendance on the Wednesday before. What are your thoughts?
That's also an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that broken up into 2 sessions if that's possible, like repeating them like
right. And I think so. I told her I didn't think that the Wednesday, I said I would talk to you guys about it, but I didn't think the Wednesday is what we'd want to go for. I actually can't be there on Wednesday. I'll have to fly on Wednesday night. So just with school, I can't do that. So anyway, I do think that the 90-minute for that would be good. So that's just a quick, we'll get into that.
When you say all new speakers, I'm not going to go if I'm not speaking. And
well,
are we talking about speakers or about community members moderating with new presenters?
Yep. I'm hoping that we can actually have all new speakers for all of our sessions. So Freelancing 101 new speakers. Their editor meet and greet, all the editors there might be 1 or 2 repeat editors, but they're all usually new anyway. And then any other sessions that we have, I think we should have new faces. I think we've been there. Like if we did moving mediums again, I wouldn't be the speaker again this year. I think we need new faces and I've talked to a couple other people about this, and just the getting that sort of fresh take on things, fresh ideas. And I think tapping the people that are members of our freelance community. We've got a lot of great professionals here with different viewpoints and different ideas. And I think that Hillary brought this up last year. She thought we should do this last year. We did have some new speakers, but we still sort of went back to our, it's just us.
But what about the moderating?
That's what I was going to say. I think that that's where we should have sorry if I just yelled, this headphones. I do think moderating, that's where we can have I'll moderate the editor meet and greet. I hope that one of us will moderate the Freelancing 101. I hope that we all have can moderate at least one session. And it could be, if we only have 4 or 5 sessions, that we have 2 of us moderate. Just really have, like Hazel would help me out with the editor meet and greet last year. It was great. So I think that we can have the presence there. And I also think that that gives us a little bit more focus to put on what we can offer outside of the sessions. So we might get 4 sessions, which is a lot, but we might get 4 sessions, but we have a lot of opportunity in that freelance corner.
I was just going to say that's something to keep in mind. I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time when I wasn't in a session or moderating the freelancing 201. I was basically living in the freelance corner, and I think it was important to have somebody, at least one of us there throughout. So
I totally agree. And you know, when I was preparing for the moving mediums, I couldn't be in the freelance corner, you know, so there was times that I couldn't be, or the editor meet and greet, you're doing the finals of that. And I think if we had less of that we're sort of handling, we can really offer even more. The brown bag lunch, I thought that was bigger than some of the sessions, the number of people we had at that.
Yeah, that was
we will call it something different because Ruth, we will call it something a little bit different next year, because people thought that we were going to serve them food. But I think
you can't always cater to anybody with common sense is supposed to know that brown bag means you bring your own bag lunch. But apparently not everybody knows that. So we did have a few people who thought we were going to provide lunch. I think brown bag is a fine label. We just need to put in the description, bring your own.
Right. And for that, and just throwing this out there so we remember it in case we forget as we get closer. I can't remember who I talked to about this, but I do not think at all that we should have everybody introduce themselves the way we did last time. I thought it was great. Like, it was good in the moment, but it took 45 minutes and so I think the only time someone can introduce themselves is when if they get up and ask a question, they can say, I'm Ruth Tyler Carter from St. Louis. I'm a freelance print journalist, and then ask your question, you know, so you can introduce yourself if you get up and speak. And that's what we'll tell people rather than going through everything or everyone. So that's just an idea of a way to make that a little bit more exciting or useful. Moving on to membership. I'm going to give this one to Sergi and Hazel, if you want to step in here. I know that you, just for the first meeting, Hazel, and then just kind of go over the membership of what Sergi sort of show her the ropes for this first meeting.
So you want me to give the membership report?
No, I think Sergi, you have the information, don't you?
I do. Let me see here. I can just read off. Hazel was kind enough to send an email. So I guess I'll just read off some of the stats here. She has how many freelance members also belong to a chapter, and it states 51 of 511 members. For perspective, before moving to Impexium, is that correct? About 1/3 of our members belong to chapters. Where in the US are members concentrated? The most is in New York with 57, California follows 49, Texas 38, Illinois 29, and Virginia at 22. There are none in Alaska, Kansas, or North Dakota. What countries do our members live in? 484 are in the 50 states plus DC. 4 are in Puerto Rico, the others in spread across 7 countries. We have 7 members whose countries are not filled in. How many members joined since the last roster was pulled? 14, but note that sometimes they may be rejoining and sometimes their membership lasts for a month or 2, so they're not really new. On the other hand, there is 1 new member with a very old SPJ member number. Which members need to be added to the MailChimp subscriber list? 19 members were uploaded on the 10th. 8 were already in the database. I believe that's it.
And how often Hazel, have you and Sergi talked about how often headquarters gets you the roster and how accurate that is now? Or has that still not been addressed, the accuracy?
We haven't really talked about it, but they I think that I love Crystal O'Keefe more than anybody else in SPJ. What a difference it is to
Great.
ask for something from headquarters from how it used to be.
Okay.
She will get you the roster whenever you ask for it.
How
And
often did you update, or how often did you do it every month before the monthly
I
meeting?
did every
Okay.
month, and I would always ask right after the first of the month. And because we were always having board meeting on the second Wednesday, I would then work up a report on membership. I don't
Okay.
know how
One
you-
thing that I would like, or I would like to request, with regards to the convention, is to find out if we have a list of who's from Vegas, who's from LA, and Phoenix, because those are the like 3 areas that we could poll, let's say, editors or speakers, or, you know, because they're able to drive.
Yeah.
So just
It
Yeah.
is easy on the roster to
sort it
pull
out.
the states in particular. I find that cities are more difficult. I mean, look at LA. You know how long it would take. I don't know even where Solomon lives, but I'm imagining it could take you an hour to get to each other, even though you're both LA. The rosters are kept in the board folder on the Google Drive, and there's a subfolder for membership, and the rosters going back, I don't know, 5 or 6 years are all in that folder. And you'll see things have changed over the years, but I mean, Crystal now sends a roster that is ready for analysis, ready to just pull that information out of. And Sergey, I'll be glad to show you if you are interested in learning, or do you know Excel at all? I'd be glad to show you how to get that information yourself. And I can walk you through that next month if you want.
Absolutely.
It takes me now like 20 minutes to get that information. It used to take me an hour and a half to 2 hours because the data were not clean. And we are now getting clean data. Thank you, Crystal.
With that I was just thinking of like, what are some new things we can do this year? And I know that once you get on to our freelance website, you can peruse through there and find everything. But what if our new members, when we have our new members, what if Sergey sent them sort of a welcome, just a welcome letter email that she just changes, the name, and gives a little snapshot of who's who, says who the chair, vice chair, who the board members are, as well as sending that the on your own, the guide to freelancing. Again, they can access that on their own, but sending that as just a little bit more of a personal touch to really welcome members in. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great idea.
So Sergey, maybe that is something maybe me and you can talk about, and Hazel, if you want to join in on that, just to kind of have a form email that we can do, and I'll show you where to get that on your own guide. When's the last time, is that, do we still need to update the on your own guide?
Yeah, that comes later.
That's for you. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then I just put volunteer opportunities in here, Sergey. If you are, as you go through this, if there's stuff that's taking you too much time, or, oh my gosh, I could really use some help, just keep that in mind, that we can tap people that are not on our board to volunteer and help out. Some people really, like Hanan does the newsletter, and she's volunteered to do that for us. So you might have the same thing if there's any opportunity there where you could find that someone could help you out as a volunteer. Keep that in mind. If you're like what Hazel just said, oh, this takes me an hour and a half every time I need some help with this. We could find someone. And then the same thing about the pending expirations. Is that something that you sent out, Hazel?
I did not send them out.
You did not, okay.
I was always in my mind to do it, but as I said, we only just started getting rosters that make.
Right, and so maybe that one, maybe that's just an idea we can have out there, but just keep on hold for a little bit, just to make sure that we're not overwhelming Sergey with here, do all this right away. All right, and then for programming, I talked a little bit to Solomon about this right before this meeting, because Solomon was our programming. He was the head of programming for this past year, and it was great. We had programming most months. But I just think, like, what I think our goals, we need to spell out our goals for this year if we want to have, if we really want to commit to one program a month, or if we want to set a number, just say we want at least 6 online events or 5 online events, where it seems a little bit more reachable, where we don't get to the end of the year like, oh, we only did 10, we were supposed to do 12, and we all feel bad about it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Does anybody have? Stephanie, I guess, Stephanie and Solomon, what do you think about this?
I think reasonable would be maybe like every other month or every 45 days, between 45 and 60 days to have something. So I think that falls into the at least 6 category.
Okay.
Manageable, and it gives enough time for people to have like a breather in between and get interested in something else.
It also gives time for promotion. Our big issue last year was that we kept doing things at the last minute, and we didn't get nearly the amount of involvement that I thought we might have with the topics that we offered. So I think saying at least 6 and making it every other month, I think using 45 or 60 days is going to confuse people, but try and pick the same part of the month, the 3rd week, the 4th week, whatever, and try and do 6. If we do more than 6, then we look great. If we only do 6, we at least meet that expectation, but that should give us enough time to do a much better job of promoting the sessions.
And I think if we start in February, that we could come up with something now. We could even do a repeat one from last year, just because Ruthie said we didn't have as much engagement as we thought we would. That could sort of, especially the first one, Solomon and Stephanie could maybe talk a little bit about what that first one is, or could be. What do you think, Solomon, was our best attended or best one last year that we offered?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I'd have to think about that.
Or I guess one that we know right off the bat that we'd want to offer again.
Well, I know that we need to do a welcome, because we need to introduce the new board members. And then we also wanted to do something where we gather volunteers. What I was going to say was that maybe February would be a good time to do both of those. So as an introduction of the board members, and then welcome back for the year. That gives us time to get out an agenda of what we want to introduce to people. And then that also gives us time to gather volunteers and advertise that.
Okay. So let's do that. Do we want to say maybe sort of aim for
This is already the middle of January, so I don't think we should go any earlier than the last week of February.
Yeah, let's do the last week. Do you have winter breaks, Stephanie and Sergi? Are your kids off one of those weeks in February? It's usually the 2nd or 3rd week, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do the last week for just anybody who's traveling.
February, the last 2 weeks of February, the 20th is a Sunday. So a Monday. So there's the week of the 20th, which goes from February 20th through 24.
Yeah,
as
that's
far as
my
weekdays.
vacation.
And then the last technical week of the month is only the 27th and 28th. So I think we should look at the week of the 20th.
But Sergi or Stephanie, you have
My kids are on vacation.
Yeah, that's the vacation, and people, usually plan
We could do the 27th or 28th. That gives us almost 4 whole weeks to plan.
Yeah.
And so, excuse me, meet the new board and asking for volunteers, I think could be one session. And that might work nicely for the end of next month.
Yeah, let's plan on that. It's a little bit, I don't want to say easy, but it's an easier one to start with, Stephanie, too. Just to sort of get the logistics and the technical things worked out and how are we going to do this. This also gives us an opportunity, if we do it February 28th, let's say Tuesday, I would say Tuesday, not Monday. Oh, Susan can't do Tuesdays though. I mean, we could do
It
March
doesn't
1st.
matter. I mean, I'll just skip it. You're not going to.
You might not. That's true. It doesn't. But that's another thing too. Just so everybody knows, like if one of us can't be at one of these sessions, that's okay. It's not really as expected or hoped for as you would for the monthly board meetings.
for that one, if Susan can't make, if we do it on the Tuesday, the 28th, and Susan can't be there, one of us can provide information about who she is and what she does and what her board role is.
Yeah, and we could do, oh no, yeah, you can't do Mondays. Okay, so yeah, we'll do the 28th. And I think Solomon, if you and sort of work with Stephanie on the first one, and this gives us also, we'll have another board meeting before this happens too, which I think is going to be super useful. And then I won't get into this too much right now, but I think that from now until our next meeting, if we can think about some of the programs that you would like to see, that you might get benefit from, like some of the ideas could be the business side of freelancing. You know, doing your taxes, that kind of stuff. What questions, maybe it's a Q&A, like what questions do you have? We're here to answer those questions. I think that would be pretty useful. I'm just throwing ideas out there. We've also talked about doing one of the editor freelancer meet and greets online. I have several editors who just can't make it to the conference who have expressed interest in this. They would be great for an online one of those. So that could be good. I wouldn't do that too close to the conference, but I would, if that was like an April one or something, we can do that.
ASJA, our local chapter, has had some interesting ones, like they're redoing it coming up, where they have somebody, she's a writer, but she has a comedy background. And so it's like basically an improv workshop, but to help with creativity on writing and sort of, so like, when you're thinking of ideas, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the box. It can be a little bit out of the box.
Yeah.
So it might,
Yep.
Can be different.
And I think you could also go back and look at some of the sessions that were offered at the conference, not necessarily for freelancers, but for anybody writing, any of that kind of stuff that we could sort of adapt and take on for one of these. Also, if we say, okay, we're going to have one every other month and we do one every other month, if we have an extra idea, let's just offer it.
We can still do an extra idea.
Exactly.
Because again, that makes us look good. If we say we're going to do at least 6 and we do 7, that makes us look really good. And if we want to do that, the ideal time for a kind of an extra insert would be late March on taxes, because there's no point in doing taxes after March.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that might be a good one, especially coming off of I like that idea.
And we could label it as a special offering as opposed to our regular programming, but that would be the time to do that topic.
Yep. Okay.
And it also, Stacy, it could be taxes only, and that would still leave the overall business idea for another date.
Yeah, that could. Okay, so just add it in as a quick session. Yeah. It's one I will attend and will not ever talk on taxes, but I actually do need it. I've been doing this for so long and still I'm terrible with taxes.
Well, one option just for Stephanie to keep in mind, if you'd like, the person I use here in St. Louis for tax help is an enrolled agent, and she's a CPA, and she's been doing this for years. She's really, really good. I had her speak to my EFA chapter, I think, oh God, either last year or the year before, I don't remember. and she's a good speaker. She does great handouts. So if you'd like me to, Stephanie, and nobody else has somebody to address that, I'd be glad to check and see if she'd be up for it.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
think that, yeah, I think that would be great, especially if she's already spoken to freelancers.
Might be
before.
hard to get a tax person in March, just saying.
Well, I can ask her because
It's a
this
busy
is
time.
something, since she's done it before, and she works almost exclusively with independents, she wouldn't need to do a whole lot of preparation other than whatever might be new for the year. So again, Stephanie, if you'd like me to check with her and just see if she'd be available,
That
I'll
would
be
be
glad to
fine.
do so.
And if it happens to be, we could always have a conversation, and if it doesn't work out now, we could just find a better time and still offer that. Because I do think everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Do still, so.
I would not try to do it between now and tax time. For one thing, a lot of freelancers get their taxes done early because they over deposit estimated taxes and they want the refund. I know a number of people who feel that way about it. But also I honestly don't think any enrolled agent would have time to do this. I know it should be easy for her, but I think taking the pressure of tax time off of it would be
Maybe instead what we could do is some kind of a message to the community with tax related resources. The Freelancers Union has a lot of information about filing for taxes and so forth. And there are other groups that do blog posts, and we could include, for those of us who use somebody to help with that, we could include their websites instead of having somebody do a presentation. And then what we should do, I think, for Stephanie to keep in mind, is consider doing a tax planning program in November or December so that people can make use of the information for next year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we do it at kind of an off time when people aren't stressed, if if we're not able to get anyone, then you can kind of take your notes, then pull them back out when it's time to do taxes. I know for me, that would be fine.
Thanks for that, Hazel. That was a good thing to bring up. And I actually think if we did it in December, because December I think is an absolutely awful time to plan anything. But if we're talking about this right now and just say, let's do it in December, and you sort of plan it ahead of time, and we're not trying to throw something together in the middle of the holiday season, that might be a great one to offer and a great time to get something in by the end of the year. Another program. So those are some of the ideas that I think I would love for us to sort of come back with at next month's meeting, and do what other programming, what would you like to see this year? What would you like to be part of this year? The other thing, just really quickly, Beth Francesco, she's the executive director for the National Press Club Journalism Institute, and she has reached out and sent me an email and asked about collaborating with us on programming. I am speaking with her later this week. So I can give that update after I talk to her. I don't know. I've only exchanged just a couple quick emails with her, so I don't know what her ideas are, what her thoughts are. I don't know if she's coming to us for some information or if she really has stuff to offer as well, where we're both sort of benefiting each other. So I will update you on that as well. And then for resources, that's Ruth's wheelhouse.
Yes.
And I just thought, it might be good to just think a little bit like, what can we add this year? Is there anything to add? What value can we add this year?
I think the most valuable thing we can add this year to distinguish from past years would be a firm programming schedule, an event schedule. So I think with Stephanie pitching in on that, I would say that's more important than almost anything else I can think of. As far as the On Your Own guide, I finally have a practically empty week, so I can spend most of this week on that. It does still need updating, and I've sent a private message to Hazel. I might need help getting back into doing that because it's more complicated a little more technologically complicated than I generally would do. So Hazel, if you've got some time, maybe tomorrow, and you can walk me back through moving the segments in where they belong, and then I can go back to doing some updating and editing.
Let's talk on the phone tomorrow
Okay,
in the afternoon. Okay.
tomorrow afternoon would be perfect. And then guidance on rates, I'm not sure we can be, excuse me, a reliable resource because rates are so difficult, and we would have to be very, very careful about how we couch that kind of a service. We don't want to get in trouble with the feds by looking as if we're going to try to control or set rates. We could get in trouble for price fixing. And
Okay, I the reason I brought that up was because
Yeah.
I feel like we always refer to, oh, go look at this site. This site has some good guidance, this site. But I thought, why don't we have that guidance? But I see what you're saying, especially as a
Well,
nonprofit.
what we could do, the one resource that seems to get mentioned the most often is the chart of common rates from the Editorial Freelancers Association. And that is very helpful, but, and it's used a lot by both freelancers and their clients, but number one, it's based on a very limited sample. It was EFA members only, and not everybody responded. So it's not all that representative. Number two, it is not about journalism. It's about almost everything else.
Yeah, okay.
So what
okay.
we could do, Stacy, is a poll of our community. And it might take a little bit of effort to come up with the appropriate language and questions. We could do a poll, ask people what they're being paid by what kinds of outlets. And then as long as we present it as this is the result of a membership survey, it is not telling you what to charge, it simply reflects what people are being paid. We should be able to make that available without getting into any, excuse me, legal trouble.
Okay.
That's basically how the EFA does it. It's presented as a survey of members. It's not presented.
Is that something you think we would do on our just for our members, or like on our Facebook?
I think we should do it. My first instinct is to say we should do it for our members, but it could be made available to non-members once the information is in place. But that's something I think we should all chime in on. I'm open either way. I think the only problem with posting it to something like a Facebook group is you really have no idea what some of those characters are doing and if they're legitimate freelancers or legitimate journalists.
Okay. So even though that's an easier place, that might be an easier place to pull than, but if we really want this to be something that's maybe a long-term reliable resource.
It's something that could be updated regularly.
Yeah.
Once it starts, once you get the initial template together.
Yeah.
I think one of the big headaches with the EFA version is that it has so many categories that compiling the data took forever. And I think our advantage would be fewer options because we would be focusing only on journalism.
Right, okay.
And that would make it easier to compile and easier to report out.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's plan on that. And then I don't know if you can work on the questions. It doesn't have to be done right now, but like, in let's say the first half of the year, maybe coming up with some questions. I can help too with that, but.
I can definitely come up with a starting point or a draft.
Okay.
And then everybody else can chime in.
Okay, perfect. So Ginny, so if you can just make sure that the bullet points under resources are the on your own guide, just so we can take a look at that next month, if Ruth does get a chance to do it this week, and then the this poll. And if we have if anybody else has any ideas on the poll, comes up with any questions, what would you like, especially broadcast, especially like Susan and myself, because that obviously is a different pay rate than print journalists, and it's usually per project, not per second, you know. right? So, the other thing is we have the databases. I am taking over the Airtable pitching guidelines, which
good.
is nuts. There's a lot in there. So I am going to diligently do that and slowly lose my mind maybe while I'm doing it. So and bring Hazel along with me. I just thought, I was like, oh, I just added these to the database to Hazel, and she wrote back this 7-page email about, well, this is what I usually do. This goes here, this goes here, don't do this. Well, but it was all super helpful stuff I didn't know. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, got it. Oh, this is where that goes. This is where that goes. So I did a very grade 4 update, and I'm now graduating to a junior college level. And I hope to be where Hazel is pretty soon on this, but I'm it's a work in progress. So I'm going to take that over. I think the same with the open calls for pitches. I have not even tackled that yet.
That might be something, Stacy, if one of our newer members wants to help with. I can tell you right now that database stuff, I think these do belong under resources, but I don't know anything about database uses.
Well, and I will say
not.
right now we only have 2 seats. Is that right, Hazel? We have 2 seats on the Airtable, so we cannot bring anybody else onto it unless we want to pay another fee for a third person to be on it. And I really need Hazel to be on it right now. So that is that's going to be Hazel and I for right now, but yes, I agree, we could probably get somebody in a little bit later. That said, Hazel, we talked about the opportunity deadlines, deadlines for different grants and contests and things like that. Hazel has been doing this, and she's retired. So is there, I don't know if there's somebody else who wants to sort of come in and how do you think they can help you, Hazel, without having access to the database?
It wouldn't be that hard, but I mean, let's put some thoughts together for the February program, because we can ask for volunteers for people who will help update the data in both databases.
Right.
Okay.
And I can spend some time between now and then thinking through how to, I already have a system for people to update the or create new entries in the pitching guidelines database. And the calls for pitches are in that same database.
Right.
So that's all set up already. But I could think through a way for volunteers, to give volunteers some tools to work with to help keep the other database up to date.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that needs it's just there's such big things that I think we need a little more thought into before we.
If we do have somebody else within the community who'd be willing to help, it could be a couple people who would send new info to you, and then you have the fun of uploading it to the database because you would know how that works.
Well, I have other thoughts about that, Ruth.
Okay.
And Ruth, we did talk about that, Hazel and I, but then there's a lot of nuances with the opportunity deadlines that I'm not sure somebody who's super new after talking with Hazel would be able to figure out. I think just the experience that Hazel has with it. Like one of the examples you gave, Hazel, was the way they change each year, right?
Yes.
Sometimes the money they give out is different. Sometimes it's not just like, oh, the deadline is different. Sometimes there's a lot of little things that can change that I think Hazel has that experience with. So I think that we can come up with something though, Hazel, to get some help on that.
What I'd really like to have, who I'd really like to have is a person who is interested in databases and knows how to work with them. to look at all this information. And there's so much information there. We could publish a listing of fellowships that are available for, that freelance journalists might make use of. All that information's in there.
So we could publish that and leave it up to the individual to check on current dates and deadlines and amounts?
Yeah. We could have a listing of contests that, and it's important to make sure to only list the ones that freelancers are actually going to get something from. I'll just give you an example. There's an ad in the weekly SPJ Leads newsletter for a contest called the Collier Prize. And they award the money, the prize money, which is considerable. I think it's like $15,000 or something like that. They award that to the publisher. But they say that freelancers can pay the $50 fee and enter the competition. Well, guess what? You're not going to find in our database. I'm sorry, but you ask the freelancer to pay $50 to enter the contest, and then you're going to give the money to the publisher.
That makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So I figured I wouldn't get into it with them, but there are things like that to be thought about. A listing of grants, of all grants available to freelancers with some information about that they would find useful. You can separate that out of the database now by filtering, but you're only going to get the upcoming deadlines. And so that's the question, is there more information here that would be really valuable to freelancers, and how can we make that available? It's probably a bigger goldmine than the pitching guidelines database. I think Stacy might bite me over that one, but
there's like 490 entries in the,
I know.
I dream about them. Nightmares about them, having night terrors on this. So along, and the last thing in resources is our Facebook moderator.
I'd be glad to help with that. I'm on Facebook.
Oh, great. Okay, because Hillary was doing a lot of it, and Susan has stepped in, I think.
Yeah.
And I can explain our process, because we do have a process that when we approve, we copy and paste what they said to the notes, so that if we ever have to go back and refer to it, like if something happens with somebody, we can refer back to what they had told us up front.
Sadly, we've had to use that sometimes.
Yeah, and I have
people get
I have two sitting in there. Oh, I have it automated so that if you don't, and it specifically says if you do not answer all 3 questions, you will be declined. It's not you may be declined, it is you will be declined. And I have that automated, and it once somebody comes on and applies, it gives an hour for them to answer those 3 questions. And if they don't answer them, then the Facebook takes care of it. It's automatic decline. So if you ever see something on there, it'll say like, we give an hour, like don't give them an hour, like let them answer the questions.
So so right now you are doing all of that, Susan?
Yeah, I have got a couple of in there that I really have a question on, of like there's one coming in as a page, but it's a page run by one person that they just it is a person, but they want to use that for business stuff versus their own, but it's not their own name, it's like a business name. And so
we have others who are like that.
Okay, I'll approve that then.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to pitch in, and if you want to send me the guidelines, please feel free. I don't want to be the only person doing it, but I'm glad to pitch in however needed.
Yeah, and it's mostly, or if you see something weird posted, like if they're spammy,
Yeah,
Is right
remove
now,
it-
who are
remove
the,
it,
mo-
let
who
them
are,
know.
who has access as a moderator right now, though?
Me, Hazel,
Susan.
Hillary, Jenny, I think.
Jenny and me and Susan and Hillary are the four.
Okay, so we probably need to add, let's add Ruth. And
Okay.
I probably need to have, I'm hoping that I don't have to do too much with it if other people are willing to do it and good at it. But I think the more the better. I think board members on there are, it's good.
And I think Hillary took over doing the Friday brag post thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then somebody
I
needs to
approved
do
it. I approved a couple people recently and I didn't realize it didn't save. I did check them out, but I didn't realize it didn't save their answers. And then when I went back to try to add them, they were gone. So that was my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so who's gonna take over the Friday brag post?
Well, does Hillary not want to do it anymore? Is that?
I don't know.
She's been
um,
doing it, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, she's been doing it since I said I stretched, and she stepped in and said she would do it.
I am going to, I'll email her if she wants to still do that. And I think that I'm okay with that. If everybody else is great with that, I think the more involved Hazel and Hillary can be, the better.
I don't think that Hillary or
I know.
necessarily, yeah.
Um,
I mean, I've
I'll
got
ask
plenty
her.
to do.
I'll ask her if she wants to still do it, or yeah, maybe she wants to do it this year and then that's it. I don't know. I know she wanted to come to most of the meetings too, so she does want to still be involved, which I think is great. I thought I had one other thing to say or have a question about. Oh, I know what I had a question about, and I really should. I don't know who to ask this to. Maybe Hillary. I did mention it to Hillary, but I didn't see anything from her. I do not have access to the freelance Gmail account. But I think I need that.
I think the password is in the folder.
Yes.
but should it
Okay.
forward to Stacy rather than to Hillary? That would be
doesn't
one way, I
forward
think,
to
to make it
anybody.
easier for you to use.
It doesn't forward to anybody.
Oh, it doesn't, okay.
No, and.
So the way Hillary checks it, she has just gone in there to look at it. She just checks it frequently. Okay.
I
And if the
used to
password's
do
in
it.
the,
Somebody
sorry.
needs to be responsible for it.
I thought the password was someplace in the folder.
It is in our board folder. And
Okay.
I will look it up right now.
Don't say it out loud.
No. but speak,
Oh.
speak among yourselves.
so if, assuming it's in there, I'm happy to jump in there and do that to answer some of these emails. Has anybody else been doing that besides Hillary?
There
No.
is.
And I don't know how many she would get. Like if you just checked it once a week or once every other,
Right.
and
Okay, so I think right now I'll just take that over and I'll respond. If Hillary still wants to, that's great too. But I'll respond to those if it gets to be that there's so many and we should really have a couple people looking at it. One person does one half of the week and the second half or someone else or something like that. I'll let you know. But if Hillary was doing it alone, then it should be fine, I would think. So.
There is a file in the admin folder.
Perfect. Okay.
That's called passwords. Guess what?
Great.
And it has the MailChimp, the Zoom.
Okay.
I think it may not have the right Zoom.
So to sort of wrap up, and I'm super excited, it's 5:25. Because I thought, ooh, this is going to take 6 hours, this first meeting. And maybe Ginny can just sort of recap this too in your bullet points, but I think we have a couple things for resources that we want to sort of see for next month. Programming, for ideas for programming, we've got one or two to start, but if we can each come with one, new idea, even if it's totally nuts, or you think it might be nuts, let's do it, or let's talk about it. I just think the more creative we can get, the better on that. And then I would also love for us to think about session proposals for the sessions for the conference. Those will be due in mid-March. We will have to talk about that at our next meeting and really start, and then we'll have to do it. We'll have to start right away after our next meeting. So I think we need to have, I think we know Freelancing 101 and the editor meet and greet. And maybe we do want to revisit some of the others, but I really think we need to have some ideas talked about at the next meeting, so we can sort of assign them, flesh them out, who's going to pitch them. And if I get the deadline between now and then, I'll just email it to everybody to let you know. But right now I know it's sometime in March. And that's all I know. Yes, Solomon. Okay, I think that's it. Does anybody have anything else?
Did we set the February meeting date yet?
We didn't. Hillary thought our meeting was at 6. She just texted me. February 20th is a bad week.
It's also President's Day, so
yeah.
Having it on holidays is not a good idea.
Guys, if we want to do a February 28 event, we need to meet in another week or so we can get that together and promote it. Otherwise, we should wait for March, which I hate to do, but there's no point in doing this.
Well, we don't all have to meet though.
Right.
I can meet with Stephanie and probably Solomon. And Ruth, if you want to be in that meeting, if the 4 of us want to meet, I'm going to send you guys an email, Solomon, Stephanie. And so we'll iron that out.
February 15th?
About how to promote it. Yes, for our next meeting, I would think I guess we can, Wednesdays at 6:30 just to see how that goes. And we'll do, if you want to, maybe second Wednesdays. If we did the second Wednesday of the month, it would be February 8th. Which is 3.5 weeks ish, which I don't think is terrible because because session proposals are coming. So do we want to try that?
The 8th or the 15th is fine for me, for what that's worth.
The 8th, I'm in New York. I'm not, unless it's evening and after, I might be able to make it, but I'm at a conference in New York.
Okay.
The 8th works for me.
8th works for me, and maybe the 15th.
Either one works for me.
And Sergi?
I foolishly did not bring my calendar, so I'm completely blind, but it sounds like it's off the cuff. And I'll regret whenever I commit, and I regret when I'm not in front of my calendar, but it seems like it's okay. It's a Wednesday in the evening, so I'll say yes.
Okay, so let me, Wednesday the 8th. What is your schedule, Stephanie? Like, what time would be good for you?
I think there is programming. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick. There is programming until, I'd say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'd say until 3 o'clock-ish, and then after that I think I'll be free, because there's a session at 4 that I'm definitely not gonna
Okay, so if we did a 6:30 meeting on the 8th, you could
I could
potentially do that. Okay, let me, I also have to check my kids' schedules too, but the 8th or 9th, I guess Wednesday or Thursday really are only 2 days, the 8th or 9th or the 15th or 16th. And yes, Susan, I agree about not doing it on the holiday. And I booked it and I sent it out and I was like, oh no, it's on MLK Day. But I will say, I think that worked really well for Stephanie and Sergi and me because our kids are like out of school and there's no pickup and there's no whatever. So thank you for everybody else for meeting on this day. I did not do that on purpose. I just didn't think of it until, I sent the email out, and the next day I thought, oh no. So
It was
Anyway.
perfect.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I will send an email about the next meeting, and I'll send Zoom. It'll probably be the 8th. Unless my schedule doesn't, I don't have my schedule either right in front of me, Sergi. So I think that's it. There's a lot of action steps. So hopefully we'll have some more stuff to go over next month to really get it rolling. I'm excited for the year. I'm excited for our programming. I'm excited for all the new things and new sessions and new faces and all that stuff. So thank you. And I am gonna, Solomon was gonna
go.
Yes, okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye, Ruth.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop recording.